In the soft embrace of twilight, where day surrenders to night like a lotus closing its petals, we find ourselves at the threshold of wisdom. The air is still, carrying the faint scent of jasmine and the distant echo of temple bells that seem to ring not from any earthly place, but from the very heart of silence itself. Tonight, dear friend, we walk together down an ancient path worn smooth by countless footsteps of seekers who came before us, each carrying their own questions, their own burdens, their own hope for understanding. The moon above us is patient, casting silver light through bamboo groves that whisper secrets older than memory. Before we begin this gentle journey into the mysteries of existence, if you find solace in these quiet moments of reflection, I invite you to pause and share your presence with others who seek the same peace. Feel free to subscribe to this sanctuary of wisdom. Offer a gentle like as you would light incense at a shrine, and perhaps share in the comments where in this vast world you're listening from tonight. Are you beneath the northern lights, or beside a warm fire? Are you in a bustling city that never sleeps, or in a countryside where crickets compose their evening symphony? Imagine, if you will, a single cherry blossom petal, pink as dawn's first blush, releasing its hold on the branch. That has been its home. It does not cling or resist. It simply lets go, trusting in the wind that carries it. Down it spirals, dancing through the air with perfect grace, landing where it will land, becoming part of the earth that will nourish new life. There is no urgency in its journey, no anxiety about its destination. There is only the pure beauty of surrender. This is how we begin tonight, like that petal, releasing our grip on the day's worries, the mind's endless chatter, the heart's unquiet longings. We let ourselves drift into this space of contemplation, where ancient wisdom meets our modern hearts, where the Buddha's gentle teachings can soothe us like a mother's lullaby. Picture a monk in saffron robes walking slowly through a misty forest at dawn. Each step is deliberate, each breath intentional. He carries nothing but a wooden bowl and the deep understanding that everything, every joy, every sorrow, every moment of confusion, and every flash of clarity happens for a reason far more profound than our restless minds can grasp. The incense curls upward from the monastery shrine, carrying prayers that have no words, only the pure intention of a heart seeking peace. In this sacred smoke, we see the impermanence of all things, the way thoughts arise and dissolve like clouds in an endless sky. Tonight, we explore the great teaching that has comforted countless souls across centuries, that in the vast tapestry of existence, every thread has its place, every color serves the whole, and even the dark spaces between the bright patterns are essential to the beauty of the complete design. So settle now, like that cherry blossom, finding its rest upon the earth. Let your breath become as natural as the tide, your heartbeat as steady as the monastery drum that marks the hours of meditation. We are about to discover together what the Buddha knew in his great awakening beneath the Bodhi tree, that understanding the reason behind all things is not found in the grasping of the mind, but in the gentle letting go of the heart. What is the sound of peace before thought arises? This question drifts through the evening air like the fragrance of night-blooming jasmine, carrying with it a mystery that the mind cannot solve, but the heart can feel. In the tradition of Zen masters who posed riddles to their students not to confuse, but to illuminate, we begin our journey tonight with this gentle wondering. Imagine sitting beside a mountain stream at dusk. The water flows over smooth stones, each drop finding its way without effort or plan. Does the water question why it must flow downhill? Does it resist the rocks that shape its course? Or does it simply follow the ancient law that draws all things toward the sea, trusting in a wisdom far greater than itself? In the soft light filtering through the pine branches above, we see the dance of shadows and illumination, never fighting each other, but moving together in perfect harmony. The darkness does not ask why it must give way to light, nor does the light demand why it must eventually fade. They are partners in an eternal waltz, each making the other more beautiful by contrast. A master once asked his student, "If you let go of everything, your name, your history, your hopes and fears, your very sense of self, what remains?" The student pondered this question for many seasons, sitting in meditation, walking in contemplation, searching through scriptures and philosophical texts. But the answer came not through thinking, but through a moment of pure stillness when a leaf fell into a pond, creating ripples that spread in perfect circles until they dissolved into calm water once more. What remains when we let go of everything? The same thing that was there before we grasped anything at all, the vast, boundless awareness that witnesses all things but is touched by none, like the sky that holds all weather but is never damaged by the storm. Tonight, as we rest in this question, we are not seeking to solve it like a puzzle, but to live within it like a prayer. We are learning to be comfortable with not knowing, to find peace in mystery, to rest in the space between questions and answers, where true wisdom dwells. Consider the spider spinning her web in the garden corner, each strand placed with precision, yet without conscious plan. She does not doubt the geometry of her creation, or question whether her web will catch the morning dew in patterns of breathtaking beauty. She simply follows the ancient knowing written in her very being, creating something magnificent through pure instinct and trust. Are we so different? Each choice we make, each path we take, each seeming accident or coincidence, might these too be part of a web we cannot see in its entirety, but which displays perfect pattern when viewed from the right height, in the right light? The Buddhist teaching speaks of dependent origination, the truth that nothing exists in isolation, that everything in every moment arises in relationship to everything else. The flower cannot bloom without the soil, the rain, the sun, the seed, the countless conditions that must align perfectly. Even the gardener who plants the seed is part of the web, as are the parents who raised that gardener, the teachers who taught them, the very air they breathe, and the love that moved them to create beauty. In this interconnected dance of existence, the question, why did this happen, transforms into, how is this connected to everything else? And from that perspective, we begin to see that what we call coincidence might be more like the rhythm of a vast symphony, where each note sounds at precisely the right moment to create harmony. The old Zen saying whispers to us across the centuries, "You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This paradox holds the key to understanding how everything can happen for a reason without making us passive, how we can accept what is while still working for what could be. As the night deepens around us and the first stars appear like scattered diamonds on velvet, we rest in this beautiful uncertainty, this pregnant not knowing that holds more wisdom than all our clever answers combined. In the gentle embrace of the Buddha's wisdom, we find a teaching that has been whispered from teacher to student for over 2,500 years, passed down like a flame from candle to candle, never diminishing, always illuminating the darkness of human confusion. The teaching is simple yet profound. Dukkha, or suffering, arises from our resistance to what is, and liberation comes through understanding the nature of this resistance. Picture the Buddha himself, Siddhartha, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree. On that fateful night, the leaves above him rustled with the same wind that moves through the trees outside your window tonight. His breath rose and fell with the same rhythm that carries you toward sleep. And in that moment of perfect stillness, he saw clearly what had been true all along, that our suffering comes not from the events of our lives, but from our attachment to how we think things should be. The first noble truth tells us that suffering is part of life, not as punishment or mistake, but as inevitably as rivers flow to the sea. We suffer when we lose what we love, when we cannot have what we desire, when our bodies age and change, when our minds create stories that separate us from the present moment. But within this truth lies a hidden gift, if suffering is universal, then we are never alone in our pain. The second noble truth reveals that this suffering has a cause, tanha, or thirst, the constant craving for things to be different than they are. We thirst for pleasure and push away pain. We cling to youth and reject aging. We demand certainty in an uncertain world. Like a person dying of thirst who drinks salt water, our very attempts to quench this craving only increase our suffering. But hear now the profound compassion in the third noble truth. This suffering can end, not through getting everything we want, but through understanding the futility of wanting itself. Like waking from a nightmare to realize it was only a dream, we can wake from the dream of separateness, the illusion that we are isolated beings struggling against an unfriendly universe. Asterisk. The fourth noble truth offers us the path, the eightfold path, that is not so much a journey to somewhere else as a way of being fully here, fully present to this moment that is the only moment we ever actually have. Right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, each aspect supporting the others like the branches of a tree growing toward the light dot in the Dhammapada. The Buddha's words come to us across the centuries like a gentle rain on thirsty ground. All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your salvation with diligence. These words, spoken with his final breath, carry within them the entire teaching that everything changes. And in accepting this change, we find the peace that does not change. The teaching of impermanence, anicca, is perhaps the most difficult for our minds to accept and the most liberating for our hearts to embrace. Every joy will pass, but so will every sorrow. Every moment of confusion will dissolve, but so will every moment of clarity. Nothing lasts forever, and in this truth lies both the poignancy and the freedom of human existence. Consider the parable of the mustard seed, told by the Buddha to a grieving mother named Kissa Gotami, who had lost her infant son and desperately sought a miracle to bring him back to life. The Buddha told her he would help her, but first she must bring him a mustard seed from a house that had never known death. She went from door to door throughout the village, and at each house she found the same truth. Death had visited every family. Grief had touched every heart. When she returned empty-handed but full of understanding, the Buddha did not need to explain the lesson. She had discovered for herself that suffering is not her unique burden, but the shared inheritance of all living beings. In her grief, she was connected to everyone who had ever loved and lost. Her pain, instead of isolating her, became a bridge to universal compassion. The concept of karma, often misunderstood in popular culture, is not about cosmic punishment or reward, but about the natural law of cause and effect operating through our intentions and actions. Like ripples spreading from a stone dropped in still water, every action, every thought, every intention creates consequences that spread far beyond what we can see or imagine. But karma is not fatalism. The Buddha taught that we are neither completely free nor completely bound, but that our freedom lies in understanding how our choices in each moment shape the moments to come. We cannot control what has already been set in motion, but we can choose how to respond. And in that choice lies our liberation. In the Lotus Sutra, we find the beautiful teaching that all beings possess Buddha nature, the inherent capacity for awakening, for wisdom, for compassion. This nature is not something we must earn or achieve, but something we must simply remember, like the sun remembering to shine or the river remembering to flow. As modern hearts receiving these ancient teachings, we need not become Buddhist to benefit from this wisdom. The truths the Buddha discovered are not the property of any religion, but the birthright of every human consciousness. They speak to us wherever we are, whatever our background, because they address the universal human experience of seeking happiness and meaning in an often confusing world. Tonight, as these teachings settle into your awareness like snow falling on a quiet forest. Allow them to be not burdens of belief, but invitations to experiment, to observe, to gently test the truth against your own experience. For the Buddha's final instruction was not to believe, but to investigate. Be a lamp unto yourself. In a mountain monastery high above the clouds, where the air was thin and pure, and the silence so deep it had texture, there lived an old monk, named Thich Min An. His name meant peaceful understanding, and though he had carried it for more than 70 years, he often said with a gentle smile that he was still learning what it truly meant. The monastery was ancient, its wooden buildings weathered silver by countless seasons of mountain storms and blazing sun. Prayer flags fluttered from every eave. Their bright colors faded to soft pastels by time and weather, but their mantras still carried on the wind like whispered blessings. Here, where the earth seemed to touch the sky, Thich Min An tended the monastery garden and guided young monks in the ancient arts of meditation and mindful living. One autumn morning, as the maples in the valley below turned to gold and scarlet, a young monk named Duck came to his teacher with tears streaming down his face. He had just received news from the village below. His younger sister, who had always been his closest friend, had died suddenly of a fever that no medicine could cure. "Teacher," Duck sobbed, throwing himself at the old monk's feet, "how can this be?" She was only 23, full of life and dreams. She was going to marry in the spring, to raise children, to live a full life. Why would the universe be so cruel? How can you say that everything happens for a reason when such meaningless tragedy strikes down the innocent? Thich Min An looked at his student with eyes that held the depth of mountain lakes, eyes that had seen much joy and much sorrow, and had learned to hold both with equal compassion. He did not speak immediately, but instead led the young monk to a stone bench beneath an ancient pine tree, whose roots had grown around and through the stone foundation of the monastery itself. "Sit with me, my son," the old teacher said softly. "Let us watch the morning together." They sat in silence as the sun rose over the distant peaks, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds began their dawn chorus, and the monastery bells chimed the hour for morning meditation. Other monks moved quietly through the courtyard, their brown robes rustling like autumn leaves, their faces serene in the growing light. After a long while, when Duke's sobs had quieted to occasional tears, Thich Min An began to speak, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he were sharing a secret with the morning itself. 40 years ago, he said, I asked my teacher the same question you asked me now. I had just learned that my entire family, my parents, my 3 brothers, my little sister, who was the light of my childhood, had all perished in a flood that destroyed our village. I had been away at this very monastery for only 6 months, learning to be a monk when the terrible news came. Duck looked up in surprise. In all his years of studying with this gentle, peaceful teacher, he had never heard him speak of personal loss, of the life he had lived before taking vows. I raged at the Buddha, Thich Min An continued, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I raged at the Dharma, at the teachings that spoke of acceptance and understanding. I demanded to know how a universe governed by compassion could allow such meaningless destruction. I wanted to leave the monastery, to abandon the spiritual path entirely. What good was enlightenment if it could not protect the people I loved? A gentle breeze stirred the prayer flags, and the old monk paused to listen to their soft fluttering, as if receiving guidance from the wind itself. My teacher was very old then, older than I am now, and very wise. But he did not answer my questions with explanations or philosophy. Instead, he took me on a journey down the mountain to see what remained of my village. The old monk's eyes grew distant, seeing not the morning monastery, but a memory preserved in his heart, like a pressed flower between the pages of a sacred text. What we found there was not just destruction, but also something miraculous. Where? My family's house had stood. The flood had deposited rich soil from the mountain heights. And in that soil, seeds that had been carried from distant forests had taken root. A grove of fruit trees was already beginning to sprout trees that would, in time, feed future generations of children who would rebuild the village on higher ground. He pointed to a small shrine at the edge of the garden, surrounded by apple trees heavy with autumn fruit. Those trees there, I brought seedlings from that grove and planted them here 40 years ago. Every apple they bear carries within it the story of loss transformed into nourishment, of endings that become beginnings. Duck wiped his eyes and looked at the trees with new understanding, but confusion still clouded his face. "But teacher," he said quietly, "does that mean my sister had to die so that something good could grow from her death? That seems cruel and calculating, like some cosmic accountant balancing the books of suffering." Thich Min An shook his head slowly, his expression infinitely gentle. "No, Gerwin, that is not what the teaching means. Your sister did not die so that something good could happen. The universe is not cruel, but neither is it sentimental. It simply is what it is, a vast web of interconnection where every action creates consequences, where every ending creates space for new beginnings, where love once given becomes part of the eternal fabric of existence." He reached out and plucked a leaf from the ground at their feet, a maple leaf, brilliant red and gold, its edges just beginning to curl with the approach of winter. "Look at this leaf," he said, holding it up to catch the morning light. Was it meant to fall from the tree? Did the tree intend to let it go? Or did it simply follow the natural laws of growth and change, of seasons turning and life flowing from one form to another? Duck took the leaf in his hands, feeling its papery texture, seeing the intricate network of veins that had once carried life through its surface. "When this leaf falls to the ground and decomposes," the teacher continued, "it will become soil that nourishes new growth. Not because it should die, but because in the great wheel of existence, nothing is ever truly lost, everything is transformed. Your sister's love for you, her dreams and hopes, her laughter and kindness, these do not disappear into nothingness. They become part of who you are, part of how you touch other lives, part of the continuing story of love in this world." The young monk sat quietly, turning the leaf over in his hands, beginning to understand something that could not be grasped by the mind alone, but had to be felt by the heart. "The reason things happen," Thich Min An said softly, "is not because some divine plan demands specific outcomes, but because existence itself is creative, always seeking new forms of expression, new ways of experiencing love and beauty and truth. Your sister's death has no meaning in the sense of a lesson to be learned or a purpose to be served, but her life has infinite meaning, because love, once born into this world, never dies." As the morning grew brighter and the monastery came fully awake around them, the old teacher placed his weathered hand on his student's shoulder. "Tonight, when you meditate, do not try to understand why she died. Instead, celebrate why she lived. Let your grief be your teacher. It will show you how much love your heart can hold. And let that love be your gift back to the world, your way of ensuring that her light continues to shine through you." Years later, Duck would become a teacher himself, and he would plant his own grove of trees in memory of his sister. And when his students came to him with their own questions about loss and meaning, he would take them to sit beneath those trees and share the wisdom he had learned that autumn morning, when the world seemed broken but proved itself to be mysteriously beautifully whole. Close your eyes now, if you haven't already, and imagine yourself sitting beside a still mountain lake at the moment when day surrenders completely to night. The water before you is so perfectly calm that it mirrors the sky above, creating the illusion that you are suspended between two infinite depths of star-scattered darkness. There is no wind, no sound except the gentle whisper of your own breath moving in and out like the tide of some inner ocean dot with each inhalation. You breathe in the cool mountain air, carrying with it the scent of pine and the subtle fragrance of night-blooming flowers whose names you do not know, but whose essence touches something ancient and peaceful within you. With each exhalation, you release not just the air from your lungs, but the tension from your shoulders, the worry from your mind, the restless energy that has carried you through this long day. Breathe in and feel yourself becoming more present, more aware of this moment. It is the only moment that truly exists. Breathe out and feel yourself letting go of the past that cannot be changed, the future that has not yet arrived, all the mental stories that separate you from the simple reality of being here. Now breathing, a live dot in the Buddhist understanding. This breath that sustains your life is not merely a mechanical process of the body, but a sacred rhythm that connects you to all of existence. The oxygen you breathe was once part of ancient forests, vast oceans, the breath of countless beings who lived and loved and dreamed before you. The carbon dioxide you exhale will be transformed by plants and trees into the very substance of new life. You are not separate from the world. You are the world, breathing itself into awareness dot as you settle deeper into this recognition. Imagine that you are gently dissolving the boundaries you normally feel between self and other, between inside and outside. Like salt dissolving in water, your sense of being a separate individual begins to expand, to merge with a larger field of consciousness that encompasses all things. This is not losing yourself. This is finding your true self, the self that existed before you were born and will remain after your body returns to dust. The Buddha called this our original face, the awareness that witnesses all experiences but is touched by none, like the sky that holds all weather but is never damaged by the storm got. With each breath, you become less like a wave struggling against the ocean and more like the ocean itself, vast and peaceful and whole. The wave believes it is separate, believes it must fight to maintain its form, believes it will die when it crashes against the shore. But the ocean knows that waves are simply movements of water, temporary expressions of an eternal essence that can never be destroyed. Feel yourself now as that eternal essence, that pure awareness that has been with you through every moment of your life, watching through your infant eyes when you first saw sunlight, listening through your child ears when you first heard music, feeling through your young heart when you first knew love. This awareness has never aged, never been hurt, never been confused. It simply witnesses, accepts, embraces whatever arises in the field of experience. From this place of expanded awareness, look back gently at the story of your life, not as a critic judging right and wrong choices, but as a compassionate observer, seeing the perfect unfolding of a unique pattern of existence. See how each joy and each sorrow, each success and each failure, each moment of clarity and each period of confusion has woven together to create the tapestry of who you are in this moment. Notice how events that seemed random or meaningless at the time now reveal their connections, their necessity in bringing you to exactly where you needed to be. That difficult relationship that taught you about boundaries, that loss that broke your heart open to greater compassion, that failure that humbled your pride and opened you to learning, that unexpected opportunity that appeared just when you most needed a new direction, like a skilled weaver working with threads of many colors, some bright, some dark, some smooth. Some rough existence has been crafting your life into a pattern of beauty that can only be seen from the perspective of the eternal witness, the awareness that stands outside of time and sees the whole design at once. In this expanded state of consciousness, the question, why did this happen to me, transforms into, how is this part of the perfect unfolding of existence? You begin to see that you are not a victim of random events, but a unique expression of the universe, coming to know itself through your particular combination of experiences, relationships, and realizations. The Buddha taught that at the deepest level, there is no difference between the one who seeks enlightenment and the enlightenment that is sought. No difference between the drop of water and the ocean. No difference between the individual consciousness and the universal consciousness. That manifests as all things. Rest now in this understanding, letting it seep into your awareness like warm honey dissolving in tea. You are not separate from the source of all wisdom, all compassion, all peace. You are that source, temporarily forgetting your true nature in order to experience the joy of remembering it again. With each breath, feel yourself relaxing more deeply into this truth. You are held, supported, embraced by the very fabric of existence itself. Every breath you take is a gift from the universe to itself. Every beat of your heart is the rhythm of creation pulsing through your individual form. As sleep begins to approach like a gentle friend, know that in letting go of waking consciousness, you are not disappearing, but returning home to the source from which you emerged each morning. In dreams, in deep sleep, in the spaces between thoughts, you rest in the same pure awareness that mystics and sages have pointed toward for thousands of years. Let yourself drift, now like a leaf on the surface of that perfectly still mountain lake, supported by waters so deep they touch the very center of the earth, reflected by a sky so vast it holds all the stars in their perfect dance. You are not separate from any of this. You are all of it, experiencing itself through the beautiful, temporary form you call your life. In the hushed corridors of ancient monasteries, where dust motes dance in shafts of filtered sunlight and the air itself seems thick with accumulated wisdom, there are stories that have been whispered from teacher to student for generations. Not the grand tales that fill scripture and scholarly texts, but the small, intimate moments that reveal the profound hiding within the ordinary. One such story speaks of a master potter in ancient China, a Buddhist monk named Wei Wu, who had spent 40 years perfecting his craft. His bowls were treasured throughout the land, each one seemingly simple, yet possessed of a beauty that made people weep just to hold them. Students came from far and wide to learn his secret technique, expecting to discover some complex method, some hidden knowledge of clay and fire. But Master Wei Wu's teaching was unlike anything they expected. Each morning, before touching clay or tending his kiln, he would sit in meditation for 3 hours, not contemplating pottery techniques or artistic principles, but simply watching his breath until he became so still that he could feel the earth's rotation beneath him, could sense the moisture in the air, could almost hear the clay itself whispering its desires. The secret, he would tell his bewildered students, is not in the making, but in the listening. The clay knows what it wants to become. My job is simply to be so empty of my own ideas that I can hear its wisdom and help it fulfill its nature. One day, a particularly impatient student demanded to know how meditation could possibly create better pottery. In response, Master Wei Wu handed him 2 bowls that appeared identical. One, he said, was made while I was thinking about how to impress you with my skill. The other was made while I was thinking about nothing at all. Tell me which is which. The student examined both bowls carefully, turning them over in his hands, studying their glazes and proportions. Finally, with frustration, he admitted he could see no difference. Master Wei Wu smiled and poured tea into both bowls. From one, the tea tasted flat and lifeless. From the other, it was transformed into something approaching nectar, as if the bowl itself had added some indefinable quality of presence to the simple leaves and water. When I make a bowl while thinking of myself, the master explained, I impose my will upon the clay. The bowl may be technically perfect, but it has no soul. When I make a bowl while thinking of nothing, the clay and I become one process, and something beyond both of us creates beauty. Everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is simply to teach us how to get out of our own way. This Teaching points to one of Buddhism's most subtle insights, that the universe expresses itself most perfectly when we learn to participate without interfering, to act without forcing, to create without grasping. The Tao Te Ching calls this wu-wei effortless action, doing by not doing, the art of accomplishing everything by attempting nothing. In another monastery, high in the mountains of Tibet, there lived a monk whose only job was to tend the butter lamps that burned continuously before the altar. Day after day, year after year, he would trim wicks, add yak butter, and ensure that the flames never went out. Visiting scholars often dismissed him as simple-minded, a man whose intellectual limitations had confined him to menial tasks. But the old abbot knew better. One winter night, when a terrible storm threatened to destroy the monastery, it was this humble lamp tender who guided everyone to safety, navigating through whiteout conditions with supernatural accuracy. When asked how he had found the way, in the blinding snow, he replied simply, "I have spent 30 years watching flames dance in the wind. Tonight, I could feel which direction the monastery was pulling from by the way the wind wanted to blow the lamps." His decades of mindful attention to what others considered trivial work had developed in him a sensitivity to subtle currents of energy that most people never notice. He had become so attuned to the monastery's rhythm that he could sense its presence across miles of storm. His story teaches us that no task is meaningless when performed with complete awareness, that enlightenment can be found as easily in trimming wicks as in studying philosophy. There is a Zen koan that has puzzled students for over 1,000 years. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Most people, when first hearing this riddle, struggle to find a logical answer. Some clap with one hand against their thigh, some snap their fingers, some wave their hand through the air. But the koan is not asking for a clever solution. It is pointing towards something that cannot be grasped by conceptual thinking. The answer, if it can be called that, comes only when the student stops trying to solve the riddle and instead becomes the riddle. In a moment of complete mental stillness, they realize that the sound of one hand clapping is the same as the sound of their own original nature. Before thoughts and concepts divide experience into dualities, it is the sound of existence itself. Prior to the division into subject and object, self and other, question and answer. This is why Zen masters have traditionally responded to profound philosophical questions with actions rather than explanations. A student asks, "What is the Buddha?" And the master points to a cypress tree in the garden. Another asks, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the west?" And the master replies, "The oak tree in the front yard." These responses are not riddles or metaphors. They are direct pointing toward the truth that Buddha nature is not a concept to be understood, but a reality to be experienced in everything we encounter. Perhaps the most beautiful of these hidden teachings comes from a story about the Buddha himself, though it appears in no canonical text. It is said that once, when teaching a large assembly about the nature of suffering and liberation, he stopped in mid-sentence and began to smile. That his smile became laughter, gentle at first, but growing until his whole body shook with mirth. Assembly was bewildered. Here was their teacher, their guide to enlightenment, laughing during a discourse on the serious matter of human suffering. Finally, his attendant Ananda asked what had caused such joy. The Buddha replied, "I was looking at all your faces, so earnest and worried about achieving enlightenment, so concerned about following the path correctly, so afraid of making mistakes. And suddenly I realized you are all already Buddha. You are all already enlightened. You are like people who have searched everywhere for a treasure that has been in their pocket the entire time. The hidden truth at the heart of all Buddhist teaching is that what we seek, we already are. The peace we long for is our natural state, temporarily obscured by the clouds of mental activity, but never actually absent. The wisdom we hope to gain is the very awareness with which we hope to gain it. The love we want to feel is the love that is aware of wanting. Everything happens for a reason, and the ultimate reason is absurdly simple, so that consciousness can experience itself, so that the universe can know its own beauty through countless eyes, so that love can recognize itself in infinite forms. We are not broken beings seeking repair, but whole beings temporarily playing at being fragments, not lost souls seeking home, but home itself pretending to be away on a journey. Tonight, as you rest in this recognition, let it settle into your awareness like snowflakes landing on warm ground, each insight melting into deeper knowing that has always been present, always been peaceful, always been enough. Imagine, if you will, a great river flowing through the heart of existence, not a river of water, but a river of experience itself, carrying within its currents all the joys and sorrows, all the hopes and fears, all the love and loss that make up the human journey. This is what the Buddha called the river of samsara, the endless flow of becoming that carries beings from life to life, from moment to moment, in an eternal dance of seeking and finding, losing and seeking again. Tonight, as you rest beside this metaphorical river, watching its waters catch the light of stars and moon, you can see how every ripple on its surface tells a story. There a flash of silver where a fish breaks the surface, like a moment of unexpected joy leaping into awareness. There a darker eddy where fallen leaves circle slowly, like the thoughts that return again and again to old wounds, old worries, old patterns of fear. But you are not in the river tonight. You are sitting on the bank, the eternal witness, watching the flow without being swept away by it. This is the first great teaching about suffering, that while pain may be inevitable, suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. And we can learn to observe the story without becoming lost in it. The river flows day and night, in all seasons, carrying everything that arises in the field of experience. In spring, it carries the cherry blossoms moments of pure beauty that make the heart sing with recognition of something eternal. In summer, it carries the full-blooded richness of life at its peak love affairs and career successes. The birth of children, the fulfillment of dreams long cherished. In autumn, it carries the golden letting go, the natural sadness that comes with recognizing the impermanence of all things, the bittersweet beauty of endings that make room for new beginnings. And in winter, it carries the stark honesty of lost death, divorce, disappointment, the stripping away of illusions that once seemed necessary for survival. But here is the secret that mystics have discovered throughout the ages. This river of constant change, this flow of arising and passing away, is not separate from you. It is the very movement of your own deepest nature. You are not a victim of the river. You are the consciousness in which the river appears, the awareness that makes experience possible. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from our attempts to stop the river, to hold on to the spring blossoms, while rejecting the winter bareness, to grasp the summer's fullness while pushing away autumn's letting go. We suffer when we try to make permanent what is inherently impermanent, when we resist the natural flow of arising and passing away that is the very heartbeat of existence. But consider the ocean into which all rivers eventually flow, vast, deep, unchanging in its essential nature, even as its surface dances with waves and weather. The river of your experience, with all its turbulence and beauty, flows into the ocean of pure awareness, the Buddha nature that is your deepest identity. From the perspective of the ocean, the river's turmoil is not a problem to be solved, but a natural expression of consciousness, exploring itself through the medium of form and time. The waves are not fighting the ocean. They are the ocean, playing at being individual, while never losing their essential water nature. Tonight, let yourself feel this deeper identity, this ocean nature that holds all experience without being damaged by any of it. When difficult memories arise, instead of pushing them away, imagine them as dark waves on the surface of a boundless, See, the wave appears, crests, and dissolves back into the water from which it arose. The ocean remains untouched, vast, peaceful dot when pleasant memories arise. Instead of grasping them and trying to make them permanent, imagine them as golden. Waves dancing in sunlight. Beautiful, yes, but no more the ocean's true nature than the dark waves of sorrow. The ocean delights in all its waves equally, not preferring one to another, knowing that each is a temporary expression of its own infinite nature. This is the profound teaching hidden within the first noble truth, that the river of suffering is not a mistake or a punishment, but the natural movement of consciousness, creating experience through the interplay of attachment and aversion, seeking and avoiding, hope and fear. The river exists so that the ocean can know itself as more than just vast emptiness. It can know itself as the very source and substance of all experience. From this oceanic perspective, even your deepest wounds begin to reveal their hidden gift. That heartbreak that felt like it would destroy you, it broke your heart open to a compassion you never knew you possessed. That failure that seemed to shatter your self-image, it freed you from a false identity that was too small to contain. Your true nature. That loss that left you feeling empty, it created space for a love beyond anything you had imagined possible. The river carries everything for a reason, but the reason is not found in the individual waves. It is found in the ocean's infinite capacity to manifest itself as both beauty and terror, both ecstasy and agony, both meaning and meaninglessness. Every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, serves the same ultimate purpose, to awaken you to your true nature as the awareness in which all experience arises and passes away. As you rest tonight in this understanding, feel yourself settling deeper into your oceanic nature. Let the waves of thought and emotion rise and fall on your surface without disturbing your essential depth. You are vast enough to hold all experiences, deep enough to remain peaceful regardless of surface conditions, eternal enough to embrace both the river's constant change and your own unchanging essence. The Buddha's final teaching was this: work out your salvation with diligence. But tonight, dear friend, rest in the recognition that your salvation is not something you must achieve. It is something you must simply remember. You are already the ocean pretending to be lost in the river, already the peace you seek disguised as the seeker, already the answer investigating itself as the question dot in an ancient temple garden, where time moves slowly and every stone has been placed with the precision of meditation itself. There grows a garden unlike any other. This is not a garden of flowers that bloom once and fade, though such flowers grow here too. This is a garden of impermanence itself, where every plant, every pathway, every carefully raked pattern of sand has been chosen specifically to teach the deepest truth about existence, that everything changes, and in this changing lies both the poignancy and the freedom of being alive. Picture yourself walking through this garden in the soft light of early evening, when the day's heat has gentled into the cool embrace of approaching night. Your bare feet touch the smooth stones of the path, worn silky by thousands of pilgrims who have walked this way before you, each seeking the same understanding you seek tonight. The air carries the mixed fragrance of jasmine beginning to bloom, and cherry blossoms beginning to fall. The eternal dance of arising and passing away. To your left grows a grove of bamboo, those remarkable plants that can bend nearly to the ground in the strongest wind yet never break, that grow with astonishing speed yet maintain their graceful elegance, that die completely back to the root each season yet return each spring with renewed vitality. The monks who tend this garden planted the bamboo not for its beauty alone, but for its teaching that true strength lies not in rigid resistance to change, but in fluid response to whatever conditions arise. Listen to the sound the bamboo makes. As the evening breeze moves through its leaves, a gentle percussion, like nature's own wind chimes, reminding you that even the air you breathe is constantly changing, that every breath you take is unique, composed of molecules that have traveled impossible distances to sustain your life in this moment, only to be released again into the vast circulation of existence. To your right, a small pond reflects the sky, its surface broken by the expanding circles, where koi fish rise to feed on insects or the occasional flower petal that has drifted down from the overhanging branches. These circles expand until they reach the pond's edge, where they disappear as if they had never existed at all. Yet in their brief existence, they demonstrate something profound, that every action, no matter how small, creates effects that ripple outward through the fabric of reality in ways we can barely imagine. The koi themselves embody another aspect of impermanence. Some are ancient, their scales worn smooth by decades of patient swimming, their movements slow and deliberate, with the wisdom of having witnessed countless seasons change. Others are young and quick, darting through the water with the urgency of new life. Yet both the ancient and the young fish are equally temporary, equally precious, equally perfect expressions of the life force that animates all beings. Near the center of the garden stands a single cherry tree, perhaps 100 years old, its trunk thick and gnarled with age, its branches reaching toward the sky with the confidence of deep roots and weathered endurance. But even this ancient being speaks of impermanence. In spring, it explodes into clouds of pink blossoms that draw visitors from miles around. In summer, it offers deep shade and the sound of leaves rustling in warm breezes. In autumn, its leaves turn gold and scarlet before drifting to the ground in spiraling dances. In winter, it stands bare and stark, its essential structure revealed, without the ornament of foliage. Each season, a tree is completely itself, completely beautiful, completely perfect, yet completely different from what it was just months before. The tree does not mourn the loss of spring's blossoms when summer arrives, does not resist the falling of autumn leaves, does not despair at winter's bareness. It simply is what it is, when it is, accepting each transformation as natural and necessary. Beneath the tree, a stone bench invites you to sit and contemplate the garden's deepest teaching. As you settle onto the smooth stone, still warm from the day's sun, you notice that the bench itself shows signs of impermanence, tiny lichens growing in the cracks, edges softened by weather, the patina of age giving it a beauty that new stone could never possess. From this vantage point, you can see the entire garden as a living mandala, a sacred pattern that demonstrates the Buddhist teaching of anicca, the truth that all conditioned things are impermanent. The flowers that bloom and fade, the seasons that cycle endlessly, the very stones that seem solid but are slowly being shaped by wind and rain. Everything participates in the great dance of change. Yet sitting here in the gathering dusk, you begin to understand something that initially seems paradoxical. It is precisely because things change that they can be beautiful. If the cherry blossoms lasted forever, they would lose their ability to stop our hearts with their delicate perfection. If human life were permanent, would we ever learn to treasure the simple miracle of being alive? If love were guaranteed to last eternally, would we ever appreciate the courage required to open our hearts to another being? The garden teaches that impermanence is not the enemy of beauty, but its very source. The Japanese have a word for this mono no aware, the pathos of things, the bittersweet awareness that the transient nature of life is what makes it infinitely precious. Every sunset is glorious because it will be followed by night. Every spring is miraculous because it emerges from winter's apparent death. Every moment of love is sacred because we know it cannot be grasped and held forever. As the evening deepens and the first stars appear above the garden, you realize that you too are part of this endless teaching. Your body is changing with every breath, every heartbeat, every moment. The thoughts arising in your mind are like clouds forming and dissolving in the sky of consciousness. The emotions moving through your heart are like weather patterns across the landscape of your being, some stormy, some peaceful, all temporary. All natural. This recognition, rather than frightening you, fills you with a profound sense of relief. If everything is impermanent, then your suffering is impermanent too. Your confusion, your fear, your sense of being lost or broken, these are all just weather patterns in the sky of your essential nature, clouds that form and dissolve without, ever damaging the spaciousness in which they appear. The Buddha taught that when we truly understand impermanence, we stop trying to make permanent what cannot last, and we begin to appreciate each moment for what it is, a unique, unrepeatable gift from the universe to itself. We stop holding on to pleasure with desperate grasping and stop pushing away pain with frantic resistance. Instead, we learn to meet each experience with the same equanimity the garden demonstrates, present, accepting, allowing the natural flow of arising and passing away. Asterisk. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, imagine yourself as part of this eternal garden, rooted in the same earth as the ancient cherry tree, fed by the same rain, warmed by the same sun. Your dreams will come and go like seasons. Your thoughts will rise and fall like breath. Your very identity will shift and change like shadows cast by moving branches. And in the morning, you will awaken as you do each morning, the same essential awareness wearing a slightly different form, like the garden. That is forever itself, yet forever changing, forever teaching the one lesson that, once learned, transforms everything. This too shall pass. And that is what makes it beautiful. Deep within the mountains of your own being, past the valleys of everyday worry, and beyond the foothills of surface emotion, there stands a monastery that has been waiting for you your entire life. Its walls are built not of stone, but of silence. Its foundation not of earth, but of eternal presence. Its bells not of bronze, but of a deep resonance that sounds when the heart remembers its true nature. Tonight, as your breathing slows and your body settles into rest, imagine yourself as a weary traveler who has been walking for days through the wilderness of modern life, carrying a heavy pack filled with all the things you thought you needed, your achievements and disappointments, your relationships and resentments, your plans and your fears. Your feet are sore from the rocky path of striving. Your shoulders ache from the burden of trying to control outcomes beyond your influence. But now, just as the sun sets behind the distant peaks, and you wonder if you will have to spend another night alone in the darkness of uncertainty, you see it, a soft glow emanating from between the trees ahead, the warm light of windows that speak of sanctuary, of rest, of coming home after a long journey. As you approach, you see that this monastery is like no other you have ever encountered. Its architecture seems to shift gently in the twilight, sometimes appearing ancient beyond measure, with weathered stone and moss-covered walls that speak of centuries of patient meditation. Other times it appears fresh and new, as if built from the dreams of future generations who will someday seek the same peace you seek tonight. The great wooden doors stand open, though no gatekeeper waits to question your worthiness or examine your credentials. The invitation is as simple and unconditional as breathing itself. You step across the threshold and immediately feel something you had almost forgotten was possible. The sensation of being completely welcome, completely safe, completely loved exactly as you are in this moment. In the courtyard, you find a fountain, where clear water falls from the hands of a carved Buddha into a pool lined with lotus petals. But this is not water for drinking. It is the water of forgiveness, and as you cup it in your hands and let it run through your fingers, you feel all the harsh judgments you have carried against yourself beginning to dissolve. The voice in your mind that constantly criticizes, compares, and condemns grows quieter with each drop that falls. To one side of the courtyard, an old monk sits beneath a flowering tree, his face serene in the lamplight. He does not speak, but his presence radiates such deep acceptance that you feel permission to set down your heavy pack and rest. As you lower your burden to the ground, you are surprised to discover that it contains nothing solid at all, just the accumulated weight of old stories, expired worries, and imaginary futures that you have been carrying out of habit rather than necessity. The monk gestures toward a simple meditation cushion beside him, and as you settle onto it, he begins to speak, his voice like wind moving through leaves, so gentle it seems to come from inside your own heart rather than from any external source. "Welcome, dear friend," he says, "to the monastery that has always existed within you. This is the place your soul has been seeking through all your wandering, all your striving, all your attempts to find peace in external circumstances. Have traveled far to arrive here, but the journey was never really through space or time. It was through the layers of forgetting that temporarily obscured your knowledge of this sanctuary." He points to the various buildings surrounding the courtyard, each one glowing with its own gentle light. "There," he says, indicating a hall whose windows flicker with candlelight, "is the library of your deeper knowing, all the wisdom you have accumulated, not just in this lifetime, but across all the experiences your soul has ever had. Every book there is written in your own hand. Every truth there has been discovered through your own direct experience of living, loving, and losing. And there," he continues, pointing to a smaller building from which soft chanting can be heard, "is the chapel of your original innocence, the part of you that remains untouched by all the world's conditioning, pure as the day you first drew breath, wise as the silence from which all sound emerges. That building with the kitchen garden is where you learn to nourish yourself, not just with food, but with thoughts that heal, words that bless, activities that honor the sacred nature of ordinary life. The vegetables grown there are patience and kindness, the herbs are gratitude and wonder." As he speaks, you begin to understand that this monastery is not a place you have come to visit, but a place you have come to remember. Every building, every pathway, every flower in the garden represents an aspect of your own deepest nature that has been temporarily forgotten, but never truly lost. The meditation hall at the center of the complex draws your attention with its perfect stillness. Through the open doors, you can see cushions arranged in a circle around a simple altar where a single candle burns with a flame that never flickers, never wavers, never goes out. This is the flame of your own awareness, the consciousness that has been present through every moment of your life, witnessing all experiences but remaining forever unburned by them. Many people, the monk continues, spend their lives searching for this monastery in the external world. They travel to distant countries, study with famous teachers, read countless books, attend endless workshops, thinking that peace is something that must be earned or achieved or acquired from somewhere outside themselves. But the Buddha discovered, sitting under the Bodhi tree, what every true seeker eventually realizes, that the kingdom of heaven, the pure land, nirvana itself, is not a place you go to, but a recognition of what you already are. This monastery has been here all along, waiting patiently for you to stop looking elsewhere long enough to notice its presence. As the night deepens around you, other figures begin to appear in the courtyard, not strangers, but aspects of yourself that you recognize with the shock of sudden remembrance. There is the wise woman who knows intuitively what is needed in any situation, though you may have ignored her counsel in favor of the world's louder voices. There is the innocent child who sees wonder in everything, though you may have taught them to hide their enthusiasm behind adult sophistication. There is the fierce protector who stands guard over your deepest values, and the gentle healer who knows how to transform wounds into wisdom. There is the artist who creates beauty from whatever materials life provides, and the mystic who sees the sacred hidden within the ordinary. All of them are you. All of them have been waiting here in this inner monastery, ready to offer their gifts whenever you remember to ask. This is why everything happens for a reason, the old monk whispers as your eyelids grow heavy with the approach of sleep. Not because some external force is manipulating events to teach you lessons, but because you are a complete being temporarily playing at being incomplete, a whole person temporarily believing yourself to be fragmented. Every experience comes to remind you of some forgotten aspect of your nature, to call you home to this monastery of the heart where you have always belonged. Joy comes to remind you of your inherent bliss. Sorrow comes to remind you of your infinite capacity for love. Confusion comes to remind you of your deeper knowing. Even suffering comes as a messenger, pointing you back toward the peace that is your birthright. As you drift toward sleep, imagine yourself being given a small bell, the kind that Tibetan monks ring during meditation. Its sound is pure and clear, resonating long after the striker has touched its rim. This bell represents your power to call yourself home to this inner monastery whenever you feel lost in the wilderness of external seeking. No matter where you go, no matter what circumstances surround you, no matter how far you may seem to wander. From this place of peace, you need only ring this inner bell through a moment of stillness, a conscious breath, a simple remembering, and immediately you will find yourself back in this courtyard, welcomed by the monk who is your own deepest. Wisdom surrounded by the community of your own integrated being, at home in the monastery that is your own awakened heart. In a universe where every action creates consequences that ripple outward through the fabric of existence like stones thrown into a still pond, there exists a mathematics more elegant than any equation, more precise than any measurement, more transformative than any scientific discovery. This is the mathematics of compassion, the sacred geometry of how love multiplies, how kindness compounds, how forgiveness creates exponential healing that travels backward and forward through time. Tonight, as you rest in the growing quiet of approaching sleep, imagine yourself as a mathematician of the heart, exploring not numbers and formulas, but the mysterious laws that govern how suffering transforms into wisdom, how isolation becomes connection, how individual awakening ripples outward to heal the whole web of existence. Picture a single candle burning in the darkness of a vast cathedral. By itself, this small flame seems almost insignificant against the immensity of shadow that surrounds. But now imagine someone taking a second candle and lighting it from the first. But darkness has not doubled, the light has. Light a third candle from the second, a fourth from the third, and soon the entire cathedral glows with warmth and illumination, each flame identical to the first, yet multiplying its power exponentially. This is the first law of compassion's mathematics. Love shared is not divided, but multiplied. When you extend kindness to another being, you don't lose any kindness yourself. Instead, you create more kindness in the world. The person who receives your compassion doesn't diminish your capacity for compassion. They become a new source of compassion, carrying your gift forward to touch other lives in ways you may never know. The Buddha taught that merit, the positive, energy created by generous actions, loving thoughts, and wise choices operates according to principles that seem to defy ordinary logic. When you give money, you have less money. When you give time, you have less time. But when you give love, patience, forgiveness, or understanding, you somehow end up with more of these qualities than you started with. This paradox reveals itself most clearly in the practice of metta, or loving kindness meditation, where practitioners systematically extend wishes for happiness and well-being to themselves, their loved ones, neutral people, difficult people, and finally to all beings everywhere. Those who practice metta regularly discover that their capacity for love doesn't become exhausted by extending it so widely. Instead, it grows stronger and more stable, like a muscle that develops through exercise. Consider the mathematics of forgiveness, perhaps the most mysterious calculation in the algebra of the heart. Logic suggests that when someone hurts us, we should subtract trust from our relationship with them. divide our attention away from them, multiply our defenses against future harm. Yet the deeper mathematics reveals that forgiveness creates addition where we expect it, subtraction adding peace to our own hearts, adding possibility to the relationship, adding healing to the original wound. When we forgive, we're not pretending that harm didn't occur or that the other person's actions were acceptable. Instead, we're choosing to interrupt the endless multiplication of suffering that occurs when hurt people in an endless cycle of pain, creating more pain. Forgiveness is the mathematical operation that can transform a negative sum game into a positive sum outcome, where everyone benefits from the healing that occurs. The most profound aspect of compassion's mathematics is its relationship to time itself. When you heal a wound from your childhood through therapy, meditation, or simple mature understanding, the healing doesn't just benefit your present and future, it somehow sends ripples of peace backward through time, transforming the very meaning of events that seemed permanently fixed in the past. This is not mystical thinking, but the recognition that the past exists not as a collection of unchangeable facts, but as a living story that continues to evolve based on how we understand and integrate our experiences. When you learn to forgive your parents for their imperfect love, you don't change what they did, but you change what it means. And in changing the meaning, you change the actual effect their actions have on your life. Similarly, every moment of awakening, every flash of genuine understanding, every choice to respond with wisdom rather than react from fear creates ripples that travel not just outward to other people, but forward and backward through the timeline of your existence, gradually transforming your entire life story from a tale of random suffering into a coherent narrative of growth and awakening. The mathematics of compassion also reveals why the Buddha taught that individual liberation and universal liberation are ultimately the same project. When you free yourself from the prison of resentment, self-judgment, or fear, you don't just benefit yourself. You stop unconsciously spreading these forms of suffering to everyone you encounter. Your liberation creates space for others to discover their own freedom. This is why truly wise teachers never claim to have achieved something that others cannot achieve. They understand that consciousness is not a private possession, but a shared field, and that every individual's awakening strengthens the whole fabric of awareness, making it easier for others to recognize their own fundamental nature. Think of it like this. If 10 people are trapped in a dark room, and one person finds the light switch, the darkness doesn't become 9/10 as dark, it disappears completely for everyone. The person who found the switch hasn't gained something the others lack. They've simply remembered something that was always available to all of them. The deepest teaching of compassion's mathematics is that separateness itself is the fundamental miscalculation. When we truly understand that our well-being and others' well-being are not competing interests, but aspects of a single equation, our entire approach to living transforms. We stop asking, "How can I get what I need?" and start asking, "How can I contribute to the well-being of the whole system of which I am part?" This shift in perspective is like moving from addition to multiplication in our approach to happiness. Instead of trying to add more pleasure and subtract more pain from our individual lives, we learn to multiply joy by sharing it and divide suffering by offering to carry it together with others. As you drift towards sleep tonight, imagine yourself as both student and teacher in this vast school of compassion's mathematics. Every interaction you have is an equation to be solved, not through competition, but through collaboration. Not through taking, but through giving. Not through defending, but through including. Rest in the knowledge that your own journey toward peace and understanding is not a private project, but a gift you're preparing to offer to a world that desperately needs examples of what healing looks like. In learning to be gentle with your own heart, you're developing the skills to be gentle with all hearts. In forgiving your own mistakes, You're practicing the art of offering forgiveness to others. The mathematics of compassion promises this. Every moment of genuine peace you experience makes it easier for someone else to find peace. Every act of authentic love you express adds to the world's store of love. Every time you choose understanding over judgment, you tip the cosmic scales just slightly more toward wisdom for all beings. Sleep now in this understanding, knowing that even your rest is a form of service. Even your dreams are contributing to the healing of the world. Even your simple breathing is part of the vast circulation of life that connects you to every other being who has ever drawn breath. Under these same stars in the deepest teachings of the Buddha, there is a silence that exists between all sounds, a stillness that dwells between all movements, a peace that rests between all thoughts. Tonight, as your heartbeat slows into the rhythm of approaching sleep, we journey into this sacred space, the silence between heartbeats, where the eternal touches the temporal, where the infinite expresses itself as the intimate moment of your breathing body lying still in the darkness. Imagine yourself sitting in a meditation hall that exists not in any monastery or temple, but in the space between one moment and the next. The walls of this hall are made of twilight itself, translucent and shifting, neither fully present nor absent. Here, time moves differently, not as a rushing river carrying you from past to future, but as a gentle tide that ebbs and flows, each wave bringing you deeper into the present moment. In this hall sits an ancient meditation master whose face you cannot quite see, for it keeps changing like candlelight flickering in a gentle breeze. Sometimes the face appears young and radiant, with the joy of fresh discovery. Sometimes it appears weathered and wise, with the patience of countless seasons. Sometimes it appears to be your own face, but as it might look if all fear and sorrow had been transformed into understanding. The Master speaks without words, teaching through the quality of presence itself. And in this wordless teaching, you begin to understand something that cannot be grasped by the thinking mind, but can only be felt by the heart that has grown still enough to listen. You are invited to notice the space between your thoughts, not to try to make your mind blank or to force thoughts to stop arising, but simply to become aware of the natural gaps that already exist in the stream of mental activity. Just as there is silence between musical notes that allows the melody to be heard, there is stillness between thoughts that allows consciousness itself to be recognized. In these gaps, you discover something remarkable. The awareness that notices thoughts is not itself a thought. A consciousness that experiences emotions is not itself emotional. The peace that witnesses all activity is not disturbed by any activity. You are not your thoughts, not your feelings, not your memories or plans or stories about yourself. You are the vast, quiet awareness in which all these phenomena arise and pass away like clouds in an infinite sky. This recognition brings with it a profound relief. All your life, you have been trying to manage and control the contents of consciousness. Think better thoughts, feel better feelings, create better stories about who you are and what your life means. But now, in the silence between heartbeats, you discover that your true nature requires no management at all. It is already perfect, already peaceful, already whole. The Buddha called this recognition the deathless state, not because the body doesn't die, but because what you truly are was never born and can never perish. It is the consciousness that was present when you were a child, unchanged by all the experiences that seemed to change you. It is the awareness that will be present in your final moment, untouched by whatever circumstances may surround your departure from this world. From this perspective of timeless awareness, the question of why things happen begins to transform. Instead of demanding to know the purpose behind each event, you begin to rest in the deeper understanding that existence itself is its own purpose. Consciousness is exploring itself through countless forms and experiences, not to achieve some final goal, but for the sheer joy of being, of knowing, of loving. Every moment of your life, the profound and the trivial, the ecstatic and the devastating, has been consciousness knowing itself through your unique perspective. Your joys have been the universe celebrating its own beauty. Your sorrows have been existence exploring the depths of its own capacity for love. Your confusion has been awareness playing hide and seek with itself, temporarily forgetting its nature for the delight of remembering it again. In the meditation hall of the present moment, you begin to see your entire life story as a kind of sacred theater, a divine play in which consciousness has been both the actor and the audience, the playwright and the critic, the stage and the scenery. Every role you have played, child, student, lover, parent, worker, seeker, has been a costume worn by the same essential awareness that watches these words arise in your mind right now. This understanding brings with it a quality of humor, the gentle laughter of recognition that accompanies all profound spiritual insights. You have been searching everywhere for what you already are, working so hard to become what you have never stopped being, traveling so far to arrive where you already stand. It is like the story of the musk deer who searches the entire forest for the source of a beautiful fragrance, not realizing it comes from a gland in its own body. But this cosmic joke is told with infinite tenderness, for the searching itself has been part of the perfection. Every path you have walked, every teaching you have received, every mistake you have made has been exactly what was needed to bring you to this moment of recognition. The journey home to your true nature had to begin with the experience of being lost, just as the experience of finding requires the prior experience of seeking. As you rest in the silence between heartbeats, you may notice that this peace you have discovered is not an achievement or an acquisition, but a remembering. It is like waking from a dream of struggle to find yourself safely in your own bed, realizing that the entire adventure was a play of consciousness that never actually threatened your fundamental well-being. This does not mean that the struggles were unreal or unimportant. Dreams matter deeply to the dreamer, and the experiences of this life matter deeply to the one who lives them. But knowing that you are fundamentally safe allows you to engage with life's experiences more fully, to love more deeply, to serve more freely, because you are no longer defending against the imaginary threat of annihilation. The master in the meditation hall of your own awareness smiles with your recognition, and you realize that this teacher has been with you always, waiting patiently in the silence between heartbeats for you to stop listening to all the louder voices, low enough to hear the wordless wisdom that needs no translation. Tonight, as you surrender to sleep, you can rest in this silence that holds all sounds, this stillness that contains all movement, this peace that embraces all experiences without being disturbed by any of them. You are not just going to sleep, you are returning to the source, touching the ground of being from which you emerge fresh each morning, like the sun that sets only to rise again, like the breath that is released only to return, like consciousness itself that appears to sleep only to wake again to its own eternal nature. In the vast concert hall of existence, where every particle dances to rhythms older than stars, and every heartbeat contributes to a symphony larger than galaxies, you are both a unique instrument and an attentive listener, both the individual note and the eternal music itself. Tonight, as the day's melodies fade into the gentle harmonies of rest, we explore the profound teaching of interdependence, the recognition that nothing exists in isolation, that everything and every being arises in intimate relationship with everything else. Picture yourself sitting in the center of an infinite orchestra, not as a passive observer, but as an active participant in a musical composition that has been playing since the beginning of time and will continue long after the last star burns out. Every instrument in this orchestra is alive, not just the human musicians with their violins and flutes, but the wind singing through trees, the water percussion of rain on leaves, the bass notes of mountain ranges settling into the earth, the high, sweet harmonies of children's laughter carried on the evening breeze. You realize that your own life is both a melody line in this vast symphony and a complete composition in itself. Every breath you take harmonizes with the breathing of countless other beings. The whale rising to the surface of the ocean, the sleeping cat curled on a windowsill, the redwood tree exchanging gases with the atmosphere. You are not separate from this breathing web of life. You are one of its most conscious expressions, aware of your participation in the vast circulation of air, an energy that connects all living things. The Buddha taught this truth as Paditaya Sampudo dependent, origination the understanding, that nothing arises independently, but everything emerges in relationship, independence upon causes and conditions that stretch backward and forward through time in an infinite web of connection. The apple you ate yesterday depended upon the tree, the soil, the rain, the sun, the seed, the farmer who tended the orchard, the generations of farmers who preserved the knowledge of cultivation, the bees who pollinated the blossoms, the earthworms who enriched the soil, and countless other beings and conditions too numerous to catalog. But the web of interdependence extends far beyond the physical realm into the domain of meaning, emotion, and consciousness itself. The very words you are hearing right now in your mind arose from thoughts that have been passed down through generations of seekers, refined by thousands of years of human contemplation, shaped by every person who has ever struggled with questions of purpose and belonging. Your capacity to understand these concepts depends upon every teacher you have ever had, every book you have ever read, every conversation that has stretched your thinking, every experience that has opened your heart. Even your ability to question and doubt depends upon a vast inheritance of human curiosity and philosophical investigation that stretches back to the first conscious being who looked up at the stars and wondered about their place in the cosmos. In this symphony of interdependence, your personal story becomes inseparable from the larger story of existence itself. That moment of heartbreak that felt so isolated and unique was actually part of the eternal human experience of love meeting impermanence. That flash of insight that seemed to come from nowhere was actually the fruit of countless causes and conditions, ripening in the perfect moment of your readiness to receive it. The relationships that have shaped you with parents, siblings, friends, lovers, teachers, even strangers who crossed your path for just a moment, were not random encounters, but part of the intricate choreography of existence, each person appearing in your life exactly when you needed whatever they had to offer, whether it was love or challenge, support or resistance, affirmation or awakening. Even your struggles and failures had been part of this vast collaboration. The job you didn't get led you to the job you needed. The relationship that ended painfully opened space for a deeper understanding of love. The illness or loss that seemed to threaten your well-being actually revealed reserves of strength and compassion you didn't know you possessed. From the perspective of interdependence, the question, "Why did this happen to me?" transforms into, "How is this part of the larger pattern of awakening that includes not just my individual growth, but the evolution of consciousness itself?" You begin to see that your personal journey is not separate from the universe's journey toward greater awareness, complexity, and love. This recognition brings with it a profound sense of belonging and purpose. You are not an accident or an afterthought in the cosmic story, but an essential voice in the symphony, a necessary note in the composition. The universe needed exactly your perspective, exactly your gifts, exactly your particular way of experiencing and expressing life. Without you, something irreplaceable would be missing from the whole dot at the same time. This understanding cultivates deep humility. You are incredibly important and completely interdependent, utterly unique and totally connected, indispensable to the whole and entirely dependent upon it for your existence. This paradox dissolves the ego's desperate attempts to prove its worth through comparison and competition, replacing them with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your place in the larger design. The teaching of interdependence also reveals why the Buddha emphasized compassion as the natural expression of wisdom. When you truly understand that your well-being and the well-being of all other beings are not separate concerns but aspects of a single equation, caring for others becomes as natural as caring for yourself. Indeed, the distinction between self and other begins to seem artificial, like drawing arbitrary lines on the surface of the ocean. In the symphony of existence, every note matters, but no note stands alone. The beauty emerges not from individual perfection, but from the relationships between sounds, the way each melody line supports and enhances the others. Similarly, your life finds its deepest fulfillment not in isolation, but in relationship. Not in independence, but in conscious interdependence. Not in standing apart, but in belonging to something infinitely larger than your individual concerns. You prepare for sleep tonight. Imagine yourself settling into your part in this eternal symphony. Your breathing becomes part of the rhythm section. Your heartbeat joins the percussion. Your dreams will contribute their own unique melodies to the vast composition that plays through the night. While you rest, tomorrow you will wake and once again take up your instrument, adding your voice to the ongoing creation of beauty and meaning. But for now, you can rest in the knowledge that the symphony continues without your conscious participation, held by the same intelligence that keeps planets in their orbits and seasons in their cycles, the same love that brings flowers into bloom and guides rivers to the sea. You are held by the whole, supported by the infinite web of relationships that make your existence possible, surrounded by the music that connects all things in one vast, sacred song of being. In this recognition, sleep becomes not an escape from reality, but a deeper participation in it, a surrender to the rhythms that govern all life, a homecoming to the source from which all music emerges and to which all melodies eventually return. As our gentle journey through the landscape of Buddhist wisdom draws to its close, like the last notes of a lullaby fading into the embracing silence of night, we find ourselves returning to where we began, but transformed by the journey, carrying within us the accumulated peace of all the insights we have shared, all the stories we have heard, all the moments of recognition that have touched our hearts along this sacred path. You have traveled far tonight without moving from this place where your body rests. You have journeyed through ancient monasteries and temple gardens, sat with wise teachers and listened to their wordless teachings, discovered the monastery that exists within your own heart, and recognized yourself as both a note in the cosmic symphony and the eternal awareness that hears all music. The teaching that everything happens for a reason has revealed itself to be not a rigid doctrine demanding belief, but a gentle invitation to recognize the profound interconnectedness of all existence. The way every event in your life has been part of an intricate pattern of awakening that includes not just your individual growth, but the evolution of consciousness itself. You have seen how suffering, rather than being a punishment or a mistake, is simply the natural result of resisting the river of change that is existence itself, and how peace comes not from controlling the river, but from recognizing yourself as the ocean into which all rivers flow. You have discovered that impermanence, far from being the enemy of beauty, is its very source, that the cherry blossoms are precious precisely because they fall. That love is sacred precisely because it cannot be grasped and held forever. In the mathematics of compassion, you have learned that love shared is not divided, but multiplied, that forgiveness creates healing that travels backward through time, that every moment of genuine peace you experience makes it easier for someone else to find peace. You have touched the silence between heartbeats where your true nature dwells, a timeless awareness that has been present through every moment of your life, unchanged by all the experiences that seem to change you. As you rest now in the deepening quiet of night, Feel all these insights settling into your being, like snow falling on a peaceful forest, each flake unique and perfect, contributing to a blanket of understanding that will nourish new growth when spring returns. You need not remember every story, every metaphor, every teaching that has been shared tonight. Instead, let them become part of the deeper knowing that guides you, the intuitive wisdom that operates below the threshold of conscious thought. The Buddha's final words were an invitation to work out your salvation with diligence. But tonight, we understand salvation not as something to be achieved through struggle, but as something to be remembered through gentle awareness. You are already what you seek. You already possess what you long for. The peace you have been searching for in countless places and through countless methods has been with you all along, as close as your own breath, as intimate as your own heartbeat. Everything that has happened in your life, every joy and sorrow, every success and failure, every moment of clarity and confusion has been perfectly designed to bring you to this recognition. Not because some external intelligence planned each detail, but because existence itself is creative, always seeking new ways to experience its own beauty and depth through the countless forms it takes. Your story is still being written. Dear friend, tomorrow will bring new pages, new chapters, new opportunities to practice the wisdom you have touched tonight. There will be moments when you forget these insights, when the old patterns of worry and grasping reassert themselves, when the peace seems distant and the path unclear. This too is part of the perfect unfolding. When such moments arise, remember that you carry within you the monastery of the heart we visited tonight. You need only ring the inner bell of conscious breathing, of gentle presence, of simple remembering, and immediately you will find yourself back in that courtyard of acceptance, welcomed by the monk who is your own deepest wisdom, surrounded by all the aspects of your being that know how to navigate whatever circumstances arise. Remember too that every challenge you face is an opportunity to deepen your compassion, every difficulty a chance to practice the art of conscious response rather than unconscious reaction. The path of awakening is not about achieving a permanent state of bliss, but about learning to meet whatever arises with increasing wisdom, kindness, and understanding. You are part of an ancient lineage of seekers stretching back thousands of years, men and women who face the same fundamental questions about meaning and suffering, purpose and peace. Their insights live on in you. Their discoveries become your inheritance. Their courage in facing the unknown becomes your strength in facing your own uncertainties. And you are also part of a future lineage. The peace you discover, the wisdom you embody, the love you express will ripple forward through time, touching lives in ways you may never know, contributing to the gradual awakening of human consciousness to its own fundamental nature. Thank you, dear friend, for sharing this quiet path with me tonight. Thank you for having the courage to look deeply into the mystery of existence, for opening your heart to the possibility that life might be far more meaningful and beautiful than you had dared to hope. Thank you for your willingness to question, to explore, to sit with uncertainty until it transforms into understanding. As you surrender now to the natural rhythm of sleep, know that you are held by the same love that holds the stars in their courses, supported by the same intelligence that guides the seasons in their turning, embraced by the same peace that has been the heart of every genuine spiritual teaching throughout history. Wherever you rest your head tonight, whether in a familiar bed, in the home you know, or in some temporary shelter far from where you began, or in the vast sky of consciousness itself, may peace find you there. May the Dharma, the eternal teaching that flows through all things, light your dreams with its gentle radiance. May you wake tomorrow refreshed in body, renewed in spirit, and remembering in your heart the truth that has been with you always. You are not separate from the source of all wisdom, all compassion, all peace. You are that source, temporarily, forgetting your true nature in order to experience the joy of remembering it again. Sleep now in this recognition, dear one. Rest in the knowledge that all is well, has always been well, and will always be well in the deepest sense, not because life is without challenges, but because you are far more vast, far more resilient, far more deeply connected to the source of all strength than you have yet begun to imagine. The monastery bells are ringing the hour of deep rest. The meditation hall of your heart glows with gentle candlelight. The garden of your dreams awaits your presence. The ocean of consciousness prepares to receive the rivers of your daily experience and transform them into the pearl of wisdom. Good night. Beloved friend, be well, be at peace. Be what you have always been in precious and irreplaceable expression of the infinite awareness that is the true nature of all beings. May your sleep be deep, your dreams be healing, and your morning awakening be bright with the remembrance of who you truly are.